That is so scary.
Good afternoon, friends, Americans, countrymen. Lend us your ears, for it is voting day in these fair United States. These states we call united. Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Thoughtful Bro. It's going to be an exciting 45 minutes, let me tell you. I have a very special guest today who needs no introduction, who I shall introduce nonetheless, but only after some critical words of introduction. So, welcome to The Thoughtful Bro, live streaming on a mighty blaze. The Thoughtful Bro is here every Tuesday at 2 for what makes great books tick, what makes great authors tick, and what makes founders of social media literary startups tick. Special for today. You'll hear about that in a moment. A Mighty Blaze is an all-volunteer initiative to help writers reach readers virtually during COVID and beyond. You can find all our interviews on the Mighty Blaze Facebook page, YouTube page. You can find us on Twitter, find us on LinkedIn, find us on Instagram. You can find us everywhere. And we're about to be all over TikTok. And by the way, if you are an intern who would like to be the TikTok person for A Mighty Blaze, come talk to us. Come talk to this person over there. Talk to her. Okay. Everything on A Mighty Blaze is totally free, of course. But if you are in the mood to spend money, please spend it on books by one of America's most celebrated authors, who happens to be a big-hearted dog mom as well. I'm talking, of course, about books like Woodrow On The Bench by Jenna Blum. If you already have a copy, guess what? Christmas is coming up, as Christmas often does. And you can buy one for your friends, your mom, your kids, your dog. Buy one for your dog. If you have a question for Jenna, please put it in the chat and we will get to it. Next week, just a quick thing, and this is an American-themed voting day edition, and we have another American-themed, democracy-themed guest next week. It is Capitol Police Officer Michael Fanone. Michael Fanone was a 20-year veteran of the Capitol Police when on January 6th, he was dragged down the Capitol steps and beaten within an inch of his life by January 6 rioters. He has since become a contributor on CNN and has written a memoir about his time in the Capitol Police Force and his thoughts about January 6th and where we are politically today. So next week is going to be a big, interesting episode as we reflect on what happens today in the midterms. So please come back 7 days from now, right here, Michael Fanone. His book is called Hold the Line. But that's enough of next week. Let's talk about the superstar sitting right next to me. I got it right this time. Jenna Blum. Jenna Blum is the New York Times #1 internationally bestselling author of the books Those Who Save Us, The Storm Chasers, The Lost Family. Oprah.com listed Jenna as one of the top 30 women writers at work today. I say she's one of the top 30 of any gender, frankly. Jenna also happens to be the co-founder and CEO of literary social media marketing company and startup, A Mighty Blaze. She earned her MA at Boston University in creative writing and has taught writing workshops at Grub Street for more than 20 years. Her first memoir, out in paperback today, Woodrow On The Bench, is about her senior black lab and what she learned from their last 7 months together. The tagline for the book is, "For anyone who's ever loved an old dog, I can hear you crying already." This book is a first-rate tearjerker. Jodi Picoult said, "When I say Jenna Blum's Woodrow On The Bench wrecked me and I'm now sobbing and eating all my chocolate, I mean it in the best possible way." And Garth Stein, author of The Art of Racing in the Rain, said, "Jenna Blum's wonderful, moving novel memoir is a girl and her dog story for the ages." Jenna Blum, welcome back to The Thoughtful Bro.
Thank you, bro. And I must say, I think your hair is looking better than my hair today. I would like to know, audience, who wore it better?
Who wore it best?
Who wore it best? Who wore it best? Bro hair or hoe hair?
See, what I'm going for here is like, it's not just Tiger King. It's like turtleneck. It's like an intellectual kind of Tiger King, you know? Tiger King has many sides and many people don't see him as an intellectual, but that's what I'm trying to bring out today.
I think we have a new tagline for your show, Intellectual Tiger King. That is superb.
That would be the blurb on my book. Thoughtful Tiger. Jenna.
Yes.
It is so good to see you today. Now, full disclosure, Jenna wouldn't disclose this to you, but I am, that Jenna's feeling a little under the weather today. But the thing is, when Jenna is at like a 7 out of 10, that's like an 11 out of 10 for everybody else. So I told her she would have no problem being on air, even if she's feeling a little under the weather. Her fans need to see her face. So Jenna, thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me, bro. And thank you for everybody who is watching. I don't have COVID. I've tested like 800 times. I just have a migraine. So normally I'd be going, hey, but that actually just hurt my head. So I'm not going to do that. No, but I'm never going to miss a chance to talk to my bro and to talk to all of you fine people and to talk about dogs and to talk about voting. Don't forget to vote. I did crawl out of the house today to vote already with my dog.
You do have, like, between your hair and your makeup and your dress, a kind of red, white, and blue thing. That is intentional, right? I'm picking up on that.
This is just how patriotic I am. I mean, I just wake up like this. White, red, you know, white tea, got it all going on. And please tell me you wore that hat to vote today.
I wish I did. I only kind of thought to put it on right before this interview. But anyway, I did vote.
You can vote many times. In fact, I encourage people to vote many times. Vote many, many times.
Jenna, talk to us about this book, Woodrow on the Bench. Tell us, I mean, everybody knows what this book is already, of course, but can you just recap it for us? This is a real big-hearted book. I knew Woodrow. I remember Woodrow. What a big-hearted dog, I would also say. But just tell us just give us like the thumbnail sketch of this book.
Thank you. So Woodrow was literally a big-hearted dog. I had him for 15 years. And the last 7 months of his life, he was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. And his doctor at the Angel MSPCA here in Boston gave him only a few weeks to live. And he lasted, as I said, 7 months, because I'm convinced of the love that he got from the people who surrounded us on the bench across the street from my downtown Boston apartment. I carried him out there every day, like my 80-pound dog. And we sat out there because we could go no farther. And at first, neighbors and friends came to keep us company. And then Woodrow, who was very elegant, whose nickname was the George Clooney of dogs, started tractor beaming in total strangers to sit with us. And they would start telling us their old dog stories. And then they would tell us their life stories. Hi, Kimberly. Blaze fam representing today, or author fam representing. So happy, guys. And I thought, especially at a time of such national division, because it was after the 2016 election and people were just starting to be openly uncivil to each other, that a book about everybody showing love, everybody, no matter who they were, from whatever state, from whatever country, showing love to this very, very old dog was something that people needed to read. So I hope it's especially relevant now as we go into the midterms and beyond. And I hope that it especially resonates with anybody who's dealing with any sort of grief or dealing with any sort of elder care, because that is what the book is about, is what those things teach us, and especially what our old animals and people teach us.
So, Jenna, I was reading some of the reviews of this book. I was kind of going through Goodreads and Amazon, and there was just like a real outpouring there of people. I mean, it was a particular kind of outpouring. You know, I mean, you get the usual kind of like, I'm a fangirl of Jenna Blum and all that. But there's a certain kind of review that I just saw over and over, which is a person talking about their own dog that they had lost. And it sort of becomes this, I mean, you are so big into community, and we're going to talk about community building through books in a minute, but I don't know. I'm wondering like how you thought the response was, and have you seen all these reviews that are like, well, I lost my dog and this brought back so many memories and so on?
Well, you know this, Mark, because I texted you about it the other day. I was posting on Goodreads to say hi to people, which I'm a very bad Goodreads author. I'm so sorry, you guys. Like, I'm on social media like 24/7 all day, every day. And I like check other book sites, and I always forget about Goodreads. So I'm really bad at that. And I went over to update my bio, and I saw all the Woodrow reviews, and then I was texting Mark like a little bee, because I was just like, there are like 640 good reviews, but there are 2 like really mean reviews. Why are people so mean? And I'm saying this because, in all candor, because I want every author out there to know, every writer to know, if you're doing the same thing, like, it is inevitable. Like, if you go look at your reviews, you're just like, oh my God, the one mean one. Like, you're like, why? I'm awake at night now. But I did notice that the outpouring of people talking about their dogs and giving their own anecdotes. And to me, that's the best thing about this book, honestly, is again, it's providing a community even after Woodrow is gone, because of people sharing their old dog stories. And when we were coming out with the hardcover and people first started submitting them to me to put on my website, to put on social, we had a thing on my website called the Wall of Dogs that was like all the old sugar faces. People would tell me their stories and I would just cry. Like I spent like 5 months leading up to that book crying happy tears because of like looking at people's old dogs and how much love they gave. So the book, I hope, serves as a lightning rod for that sort of community.
Jenna, is there any one in particular story that maybe really resonated or jumps out? I know I'm putting you on the spot right now, but like either in person or a review or anything. I mean,
with other people?
Like other people. Like, is there any one particular one that you remember?
Oh my God. All right. Now I'm going to drop some heavy shit on you guys, because there are two that are amazing. I'm going to tell you the first one and you're going to think that's the heavy one, and it's not. So, okay. So the, hi, Caroline.
I'm on for a minute to tell you and everybody else that this book is my favorite book of the year. I just absolutely love it. And this is a book for anybody who has ever loved a dog or a person, actually. I've been posting the comments, but I couldn't figure out how to do it under my name other than a Mighty Blaze. But I just had to show up to say, love you, love the book. And Mark, your hair is so cool.
It's stunning, right? It's just stunning. I love you so much. Even Caroline bombed. It's the best bombing ever. This like made my whole day, sweetheart. Thank you.
This is like the first bombing ever in Blaze history, I think. I mean, this is totally unplanned.
Are you sure? I bombed somebody.
I am sure. I didn't know about this.
I
had to. So everybody, go to your favorite bookstore. Go buy many copies of this book, because you know what? It's the perfect holiday gift. It really is. I mean, I'm giving it to people. You should too.
Oh, I love you. Thank you. I did not pay her to say that. I didn't even know she was coming. You just totally distracted me, because now I just want to fangirl on you. Like,
okay, I'm going now and letting you two guys talk. Love you both.
Always good to see you, Caroline.
Oh my God.
That was awesome.
I have to say, and those of you who are new to the Blaze, welcome to the Blaze. But those of you who have been with us throughout the pandemic and beyond know that, Caroline Bob, that Blaze fam is called fam for a reason. Like, this is a really tight group, and I'm so privileged to work with all of these people. You guys are just the best. That was so great. Thank you. And I love Caroline. I don't get to see her as much as I want to, which would be like every day, like every hour. Hi. So that was really great. All right. Okay. So now I invite everybody to like get your handkerchiefs out, or, you know, your handkerchiefs, your tissues, whatever, dish towel, sleeve. So the first response I got from the Woodrow book that was like, oh my God, this is like something I'm going to look at on my wall forever, was from a man named Bob, which was also coincidentally my dad's name. And he said, "Dear Jenna," I probably have this in an email that I could read to you guys. But he said, "Dear Jenna, I am reading this by my mom's bedside, and she's in hospice. And I'm reading this to try to make some sense of what is happening. And I had an old dog who I really loved, so that's why I picked up the book. And then it's helping me with the passage of my mom as well." Oh, actually, I'm going to show you something really cool. So, besides my shirt.
Yeah, show them your shirt too.
Yeah, this is my shirt. It's a blue dog. It's a big blue dog. Everybody wants to know if this is Woodrow, and it's not. But if Woodrow were here, he would be voting blue and also wearing a shirt just like this. So
it's sort of like that Obama Hope shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this is kind of like this is what I want to wear today, in honor of Woodrow, in honor of our country. So Bob wrote to me, and of course I wrote back to him. And it took me a couple of days to write back. The more emotionally intense an email is, the more I usually sit with it, because I want to process it and make sure that I'm being respectful to its author. And this was a tough one, right? I mean, the guy is sitting by his mom's bedside, and he wrote at the end, "I wish I had known Woodrow," and that made me just cry like buckets. Texted to everybody. So I wrote back to him and I said, "I'm so honored. Woodrow is so honored that we can be there with you." And then we started this email correspondence. And his mom has since passed, like only a couple of weeks ago. And it turns out he's actually a wood carver. And he makes these birds called comfort birds that fit on your hand like this, so that if you're feeling bad, you can pet them, and they're like really smooth and soft, so you can just
That
hold
is so cool.
And he sent me one of his comfort birds, and this was
Oh man.
I know this is one of his birds, and it was the first one he made after his mom passed.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
I know, right? So I named this bird, and it's on the bottom. I named this bird Maggie after his mom, and Maggie lives over here on my shelf next to all of my Woodrow stuff. Then I sent that to him. So I have a new friend named Bob who came to me because of this book, which is just so
That is so cool.
There's another story, though. Do you want to hear another story?
I think I do.
Okay. So then I guess this was maybe January, February. I don't even know if I told you guys about this because it just was a wash. It washed over me. A woman wrote to me and said she loved the book, reminded her of her old dog. It was always an honor. And then she said, and I had the privilege to work with a service dog, like a comfort service dog, after a tragedy in my life. And I was like, okay. And then the next paragraph began, I was a teacher at Parkland. And I was like, oh God. And I had to sort of like back away from the screen for a little bit. And she said that she was in the classroom when the gunman came in and killed her students in front of her other students. And that she, to this day, was still involved in therapy work with those students. And that in the aftermath of Parkland, like the 4 or 5 days after this, they brought in a golden lab service dog to act as a therapy dog for the students and for this teacher. His name is Ivy. And Ivy apparently was so dedicated to her students that when the therapy course was complete, the organization gifted her the dog. So she got this beautiful, golden lab service dog.
Wow.
And she then said, I then rehomed him with veterans who needed help with a veterans organization because they needed him more than I did. And I was like, wow. Oh my God, no, nobody needs him more than you, Ivy. Like, I literally felt like I was touching God reading that letter and felt so like amazing and unworthy to have received it. But I'm so grateful. And then she was like, so, now I recommend Woodrow to my students. And I was like, I just want to just come and sit at your
feet. Oh my God.
I have been trying to think for ages about what to get her as a gift. And I think I finally figured out what it is, but I'm obviously going to send her one of these paperbacks.
My goodness.
I know. Did I tell you that story?
You never told me that story.
I think I was just so blown away by it that I was like, oh. I told it at a book club once to some teachers, like pretty soon after I got the letter. They were all teachers, so I thought I would tell them the story of heroic teacherdom, and then they all cried like really, really badly, so I decided not to tell that story at a book club anymore. But like, Ivy, wherever you are, if you're watching this, like, we are so in awe of you. We are so in awe. She was an amazing lady.
Wow. Well, one of the great things about you, Jenna, is this way that you love building community. And sort of an interesting thing about this interview is that, I've never had a guest in 80, however many episodes. I've never had a guest on my show twice, much less somebody to talk about the same book. But it's so interesting to talk to you about this because I get to check in a year later. And I remember on our last interview a year ago when your book launched, you were just saying like how much you hoped the book would reach out there and give people a home and, let people feel more like they have a community and they can be together through this book and through the emotions and things described in this book. And here we are, like, look at these amazing things that have happened in the last year. So.
Yeah, really amazing stuff. I think I've been so blessed with community because of Blaze, which then was sort of grew out of my writing my novel workshop for Grub Street. So I don't take community lightly at all. It's something I'm the most dedicated to. Yeah.
And what are some other ways, like, would you say, other than, these are kind of like one-on-one, like people that you've met kind of through the book. But I know you were kind of hoping to create a community of like dog lovers and so on. And I know you've had events like with dogs. Like, how has that all gone?
It's been fun. I'm bringing my dog to an event tonight. I have a new dog, Henry Higgins. He's not that new anymore, actually. He's like 2.5 years old now. Henry. He's asleep. He's resting for his big star appearance tonight. So I did, I I did a book tour for Woodrow.
Mm-hmm.
Between Delta and Omicron, I kind of threaded the needle, and I did a driving tour both in New England and the Midwest, 2 events that were mostly outside because people were still being very COVID cautious at that point because of
Mm-hmm.
and so we did a lot of outdoor events with dogs. And I was welcomed to Pamela Klingerhorn's place in Minnesota and went to the Skylark Bookshop in Columbia, Missouri, and to Iowa City and to Milwaukee, to Marky Stratton's book club out there. And the dogs were everywhere. And it was a really interesting time to be an author on a physical tour because first of all, like the world has opened up a lot since then, but I was the first author that I knew of that was out doing a physical tour, and the events were really gratifying, and they were also very variable in their attendance. So one event would have like 8 people, and one event would have like 100 people. And the way I feel about this is the way I feel about all events, which is that if you show up and there's somebody there, like I did an event once as a debut author that was like my mom and a homeless person. And I was grateful for the books and the homeless person, and even to my mom who was like, but still, like if people show up to hear you talk about your book, like that is a good day. So it was a really interesting thing to be out on the road in a time where people were still pretty locked down, and also to do a lot of virtual events as well, which of course we're also familiar with. We produce these, we do them every day of the week pretty much, and in our sleep. And when you're on the other side of the bro microphone, like it's a very different experience. It's awesome.
Yeah. Talk to us about that. Your event, as you said, I think that launch a year ago, which was so fun and so awesome and so just what the doctor ordered in the middle of a pandemic, with sort of coming to the end of the pandemic. I think that your book launch was like the first in-person event that Brookline Booksmith had done in 2 years, and you were over at the Coolidge Theater for that. It was a wonderful, wonderful event, but it was a strange event. Because like everybody's got a mask on, and still some of that is happening now. But back then, just to be out in a group of people was like a huge thing that some people hadn't done in over a year. And so, can you just talk to us a little bit about that? You are the queen of book tours, and here you are, like sort of blazing a trail a little bit in your launch for this book.
Thank you. Well, it was an incredible event, I have to say. It was the first in-person event at Brookline Booksmith, which is a very, very beloved bookstore in Brookline, Massachusetts. They hadn't done any events since March 2020. And actually, most of the bookstores that I did live events with, same thing. Like the amazing, like Newtonville and Belmont Books. I was their first event back. And I think they were like not going to say no to me because, as everybody knows, I am like a event hoe. Like it is my superpower. I have said many times I will drive over people to get to my boyfriend, Hot Mike. Like I really need to. It's my favorite thing in the whole world.
I get it, Hot Mike.
Right? I know.
Took a second.
Me there. If I had a mic, it would be a funnier joke. But see, this is why you have to do in person. But I had put together this tour with my publisher of these in-person events, and Harper had said, like, we can't really endorse this because of liability, but if you want to do it, we will back you. We will get you the books. And that was a big deal because there were also supply chain issues right before the hardcover of Woodrow came out. So Woodrow was caught in the supply chain. Like he was literally somewhere in the Suez Canal. He was, in England. He was in China. And I had set up probably about 30 events, and there were no books. And so that was like a whole new sort of pivot. And I feel that like Blaze has taught us a lot about pivoting. Like Blaze essentially is a literary crisis response organization. And so when my agent first called me, maybe a month before my in-person launch at the Booksmith, and she said, Jenna, she's French, she said, Jenna, do not panic. But there is something I need to tell you. And I was in my car at the time, and I had to pull over to the side of the road. And she was just like, none of the bookstores are going to have your books for your events. And they were like, should we cancel the launch? Should we not cancel the launch? Should we do the launch? Should we push the launch? What should we do? And I was like, I'm not pushing the launch. Like I have Queen Jodi Picoult coming down here from New Hampshire, even though she has asthma, to sit on a stage with me and talk to me about my dog. And I am not canceling this launch. And they were like, okay. And so I did have like the full backing of my publisher to get books to the stores eventually, but it was tough. And what I did was I made a bunch of QR codes that people could scan and pre-order Woodrow. That's not a QR code. I even had a phone case made with the QR code on the back of it so that people could scan this QR code, which is making it hard to see. So I think for any author who's planning an event now, I feel like we're starting to wobble out of the pandemic and we're now more in the endemic stages. I've seen a lot of live events, like our own Rachel Barenbaum was going to come to my paperback launch tonight. She can't because she was in St. Louis at a big JBC event, right? So like people are coming out, but the digital events are here to stay. This platform is here to stay. And there is always, always, always going to be some solution for an author who really wants to sell books, whether it's a QR code or a bunch of friends getting together to put other people online or driving around with your dog. Like there is always going to be a way.
Yeah. Yeah, you are just, I mean, I'm just in awe of kind of how you manage your book promotion life. You know, there in sport ball, okay, in baseball, there's like a lot of categories, like people who have hit like 40 home runs and stolen 40 bases in one season, or, you know, people who've like led the league in scoring and also led it in some other category, right? There's a lot of like sport ball, like double category stats that are like really interesting to sport ball people like myself. But, you know, I think there's like a double category for you, which I don't know how many people are actually in, which is authors who have sold more than 1 million books and done more than 1,000 in-person events. And I think that's you. And I mean, I don't know if there's more than like 100 people on earth who have that, who are in that category, to be honest.
I would beg to differ. Thank you. But I like this group, and I think we should invent a special sport ball name for those authors. I mean, I think about people like Jodi Picoult and Chris Bajalian, for instance. Like they have sold a million books, rightfully so, and they love to get out there on tour. But I think the authors fall.
But over 1,000 events in their life. I mean, that's like 100 events per book if you've published 10 books. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
That's true. I'll ask them over on Twitter or Mastodon. No, I'm actually not going to Mastodon. You guys should come.
We'll call it the 1,000 Million Club.
That's 1,000 Million Club. Okay.
The 1,000 Million Club.
Yeah. Well, I told you I was a marketing hoe, right? Like I need to get out there, all those events. Do you think people actually invited me? I was like, hi, I wrote a book. I'm coming to your house to eat all your cookies, talk about my book. But in all seriousness, there was a publicity meeting I went to at Harper right before the publication of my third novel, The Lost Family. And we were going to gin up a marketing plan, as one does. And when I went into that room, which was like my agent, my editor, the CEO of the house, the publicist, and there's like a great marketer, great team there. I said, and I could feel my agent clutching her head and just being like, oh God, please, she's going to talk. And I was like, yes, I'm here. I'm going to talk. I'm wearing lots of gold necklaces and I'm going to talk now. I have the mic. Surprise, bitches. But what I said was, I don't write a book for nobody to read it. I want to write a book so everybody reads it. And it's not about ego. It's because I believe in the thing that is in the book, and I hope it will help people, and I hope it will help people feel less alone. And I mean that for my novels too, as well as Woodrow. I hope that in reading my novels, as with good fiction that I love to read, you come across a moment that resonates in your own life in a way that you didn't think about before, but is suddenly recognizable. And then that helps you feel less alone as a human being on the planet. So that's why I write, and that's why I do all this intense marketing, is, you know, in hopes that the book lands on like one more person, like Bob. You know?
And we saw one of our Blaze fam members, Allison Adair, in the comments say, and on top of all that, you do so much for other writers too. And like, that is true. It's not just about you and your books. I mean, you do so much to lift other people up as well. And that needs to be acknowledged.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I don't know what I would have done with you guys without you guys during the pandemic, honestly.
Yeah.
All
right.
People to help.
So a couple other questions. I do see questions from the audience, and we'll get to those in about 5 minutes. But you were sort of beginning to talk a minute ago about the publishing industry. And so you, as a founder of A Mighty Blaze, co-founder, and also as an author who's in the 1,000 Million Club, which is now a thing, by the way, who better than you to kind of expound upon changes in the publishing industry, at least from the author's perspective? I'm just kind of curious, like what are like one or two things that you can say, like, because of the pandemic or whatever reason over the last 3-4 years, what are the things that have permanently changed? Like, we're never going back to Kansas in whatever way.
As I said, digital events are never going away. And I think that both publishers and book club, book event hosts realize that it can be really, hi, Jenna, hi, JP, I love all my Blaze fam, that it is more cost effective often for authors to reach their audiences online as opposed to spending. I mean, this is basically what it costs is to fly an author into a city and have them go to an event. Costs like $1,000 a pop when you have like the flight, and then you have a hotel room, and then you go to a bookstore if there are 5 people there, and that's all the books you sell. And if there are 5 people at your event, you will sell 2 books usually, and that's considered a good event. You usually sell like a third of every in-person event's audience, right? So publishers are like, nah, no. And so I think the in-person events are increasingly sparse from the publisher side, but are often handled by the authors themselves. Like we have authors coming up on Blaze coming out next year. We have Jane Roper with Society of Shame. We have Julie Gerstenblatt with Daughters of Nantucket. And they know that they're both working with their publishers to do their events, but I'm also introducing them to people who I have had events with over the years. I have an event this upcoming week with Robin Hominoff in Rhode Island at Curiosity & Co. Bookstore Thursday evening. If you're there, also with dogs and also snacks and booze. And Robin and I are old friends, and we set that up independently of any publicist. So I think if you're an author watching this and you're interested in doing your events in person or online, like ask other authors, like ask me, ask Blazers, like how do you set this stuff up so that you're giving yourself the support that the publisher for like cost effective reasons is probably not going to provide.
Okay.
People.
So yes, I hear you. And that is totally right. All that you're saying, but let me just play devil's advocate for a second and say, make a convincing argument right now for why in-person events should never go away, and should not be wholly replaced by digital events.
Totally. I'm going to pro both digital and in-person events. Okay. So the great pro of digital events is that you have people from everywhere watching those events who normally would not be able to come and see you. Like we had Bozina on this chat. We have Anissa, who's one of my best friends who I've never met. We had people from all over the world watching our Blaze events. I did produce Sanibel Island Writing Conference this weekend. Blaze did, our incredible team did, and they had hundreds of people on those literary events for hours at a stretch who would not be able to make it there in person. And in fact, without digital events, Sanibel wouldn't have happened this year because the island was literally underwater. So digital events create a much more inclusive audience and a very robust worldwide audience. The pro of in-person events is people. Like, really, like that's it. Like I love to be among people, and there is a charge that we get from each other as human animals that you can't get in 2 dimensions, that you can't get within a Zoom screen. Much as I love looking at you and your beautiful hair, Mark, like I would love for you to be here in person having this conversation. Stop playing with your hair. I can't play with my hair on screen. You can't play with your hair on screen. But really, I mean, I think that the in-person thing there also is a sort of, and this pertains to teaching too, especially. I taught an in-person class for the first time a couple of weeks ago at the beautiful new Beacon Hill Books here in Boston. And I have been teaching online the whole pandemic, and it is a linchpin in my life. It is my favorite thing, our class. We pivoted from in-person to an online workshop the first week of the pandemic, and it never stopped. And being in person, I bonded with those people within 3 hours, even though I had met only one of them before, because you're all sitting there writing together, laughing together. And I think the only other thing that kind of doesn't translate as well on digital events is laughter. That, like, you can't laugh simultaneously on most platforms because only one person at a time can make a sound. So that human charge and that laughter, like we need that. We're social animals. We crave that. So let's bring us all back together in every way.
Beautiful. And on that note, if you are in the Boston area, Jenna is doing an in-person event tonight, correct, Jenna?
I am with Henry.
Okay, so can you just give us the quick pitch on that event so anybody can go there last minute if they don't have plans?
Absolutely. And if you do have plans, you should obviously cancel them and come to the It's really fun. So it's going to be at a place called Barmore in Newton. There you go. Thank you, Trisha, for popping that up. Barmore Pub and Restaurant. We're going to have it outside, so dogs are encouraged to come if they're well-behaved dogs, well-behaved humans, or like not well-behaved humans like myself and like Mark, who will be there. So if you want to see Thoughtful Bro in person, that's where you should be. So And we're going to do a reading with me and another author who writes about dogs called E.B. Bartell. We're going to talk to each other about that. All the books will be provided by Newtonville, which is an amazing indie bookstore in Boston, run by a former Grub Street writing alum, actually. And there's going to be a prize wheel. And also, saving best for last, we're sponsored by Tito's Vodka. So we have like a lot of merchandise. And especially honored to say that after I get everybody liquored up, I'm going to do a raffle for our friend Trisha Blanchett's Operation Delta Dog, which links like vets who have PTSD with service dogs who are rescue animals. So like everybody should check out Operation Delta Dog, and I'm honored to be fundraising for them tonight with Tito's and Henry and Mark and paperbacks.
There's a lot happening there. It's sort of like the Tito's, the Delta Dog, the prize wheel, the dogs. I mean, it's like there's something for everybody. If you can't find something to like in that suite of things, then I don't know what to tell you.
It's going to be a circus, as it should be.
I'll wear this wig too, just to add to the festivity.
Wig? Bing.
Jenna, last question from me before we get to audience questions. And thank you everyone for these very sweet and thoughtful chats. It's awesome to see you all here. Bozina, Joanne, thank you for being on the show, and everybody else who commented. Jenna, you have a new dog, the wonderful, well-regarded, well-published, educated Professor Henry Higgins. Can you tell us about this erudite gentleman?
I can. I wish he would wake up so I could say, hey, Bruce, here, come. He has many names, none of which are actually Henry Higgins.
He was awesome on your book like unveiling.
Yeah,
when we opened.
My book horrifying. Just take it from here. It's one of my favorite things I like to do.
Oh, look at that guy.
I just woke up, guys. I need to sleep for tonight because Tito's.
That is a friendly, handsome dog.
He's a good boy. So yeah, one of the top 10 questions that I get asked almost all the time is when to get a new dog. Like the number one question I get asked with the book is, do you have any advice about when it's time to help my dog cross the river? And the book actually answers that. It has like a scale, a quality of life scale in it that's helpful for people.
Mm-hmm.
And the other question is, when do you get a new puppy? And my answer to both of those questions is, it's a highly personal decision. And I knew that I would not last long without a new dog in my life. I'm a dog person, and they just give you so much daily joy. So I crowdsourced a lot of opinions about this. And finally, my friend Jacqueline said to me, I got my dog like a month after my old dog passed. Everybody said it was too soon. It was not. Like, I really needed having a new dog. I love my new dog. I will just tell you one thing, Jenna, about when you get your new dog, you will think he is weird. And I was like, what do you mean I'll think he's weird? And she's like, he's going to seem weird because he's not like your old dog. And indeed, when I got Henry, I was prepared for this. And I still thought that Henry was weird. And I kept saying to him things like, your Uncle Woodrow would never do that. Your Uncle Woodrow didn't used to eat dead things. Uncle Woodrow didn't used to eat poop. Like, Uncle Woodrow didn't have to go to the vet within 12 hours of me bringing him home from the breeder. Like, Uncle Woodrow didn't make those weird grunty noises when he ran. So it's like, there are all these things that Henry does that Woodrow did not do. But I have to say, like, I have the two best dogs in the world, because Woodrow was this super elegant, very wise, like a little bit sly dude who existed for me to serve him. And it teach me a lot about service. And those were the ineffable lessons that I was trying to put into the book, that how to really be in service of a creature you love. Henry is the world's sweetest animal. Like, he just wants to be around people all the time, and all he wants to do is serve me and make sure that I'm okay. So he is like what people think of when they actually think of a dog like that.
Yeah.
So that's what Henry is. He's a good boy, and he really loves door stoppers. He likes rubber door stoppers.
Oh, I thought you meant door stoppers, like you know how like sometimes called big books door stoppers.
Oh
like,
yeah, no, he doesn't like books.
Actual door stoppers.
Yeah, he's very bored with books, but like our the handyman for our building actually got 6 door stoppers to put under one door for Henry, because Henry likes to run upstairs with it, like best day ever, and go. His favorite thing. Dogs are simple. It's one of the
All
best
right,
things
wait.
about dogs.
That grunting you just did made me think of one other final question, which is that you had a voice for Woodrow that you did, and that voice was very distinguished. But I'm just wondering, do you have a voice yet that you do, like that you hear in your head for Henry?
Sadly, yes. And I say sadly because it's never going to change. And I think, and it makes him sound like Peter Brady before the voice changed. So Woodrow's voice was like a combination of Barack Obama and George Clooney. That's how I always he did. He was like,
Well,
I know. Like when I was trying to explain this to the woman who did the audiobook, to the actor who did the audiobook, and she was so talented, she was like, I'm not sure I could hit that bar, but I will try. Dude, I was thinking, it's like, look, Mama, the dog is starving. Like the dog needs food, the dog needs attention. And that was how he, that was how I heard it.
Gravitas.
Gravitas, suavity, that's just who he was. He was just the smoothest butter dog. Henry is like Mickey Mouse on crack dog. And he's like, lady, because he calls me lady. And he never will stop calling me ladies, or lades for short. So he's like, Liz, I am very, very sad today because dog did not go to vote. And then I heard from other dogs that dogs could go to the vote place and get treats. And you did not bring me a treat. Just a stupid sticker, Liz. Is not very good. Also starving.
I hope his voice changes as he grows older.
I do too. But for now, that's
it's like, something a little bit deeper,
I mean,
more masculine, maybe.
The thing is, like, when he actually makes noises, he has like these James Earl Jones like grunty sounds. So I don't know where this Peter Brader thing is coming from, but also when Henry texts people, which he does a lot, despite his lack of opposable thumbs, he texts in all caps. He uses shouty caps, and I'm like, Henry, that's so rude, but he does it anyway.
Wow, interesting dog. I will say that.
They're both really interesting dogs. They're both dogs are interesting dogs, I think, in one way or another, but very different.
All right. So could we see some there were a few questions from the audience. Could we just throw one or two of those up there? Hi, Jenna and Mark. This is Caroline Leavitt, who was just on air with us. And this book is one of my faves ever. I want to ask you, Jenna, now that the paperback is out and racking up even more raves, which is true, is there anything you wish you had done differently or written differently?
Such a good question from our queen. No. I mean, honestly, I don't wish I had done anything differently. I don't wish I had written anything differently. Hi, Kat. I try not to have regret about my books because once they're done and they're out. So even though there are books I look back at now and think I would have liked to have written this in a different way or from a different perspective or whatever, I don't ever regret writing the books the way I did write them. And with Woodrow, because Woodrow was a memoir, there isn't much I could have done to write it differently. You know what I mean? I was just telling the truth about my life. And you guys have probably heard me say this, who have heard me talk about Woodrow before, but Mark was the one who encouraged me to go deeper in this memoir than just writing about Woodrow's frailties and how I was physically coping with them and what that toll was. Mark said, we need to know about your life as well and why you felt you were at an impasse with him where you didn't have a lot of help and support, and how that then made you invite people in and changed your life. And so thank you, Mark, for that, because you gave the book its depth. If I hadn't had Mark, I would have wanted to do things differently. But because of the advice of my friends, I'm content with the way the book turned out. And there are a few reviews online now that say, there's one review on Amazon that says, very bad owner behavior. Like this woman spanked me on the nose with a newspaper because I was a very bad owner. And she made a point that I was prepared to hear, actually, when I released this book, that people thought I kept Woodrow alive too long because he was in pain or because he couldn't walk very well or because he was just really, really old. And people sometimes ask me on interviews, do you think you did, like in retrospect, keep Woodrow alive too long? And I don't think I did. And so that's the one thing I still question, like, should I have done that differently? But my formula was, if the nose and the tail still work, the dog is happy. And up until the very last week of his life, when Woodrow really started to go to a different place that I could see in his eyes, up till that last week, he was happy. Like he was enjoying his bench and his life and his ladies and the people he was greeting outside. And so I have no regrets. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, let's do a few more questions. Okay. Wait, hold on. This is from Caroline again. I do see Joanne. I see your question, Joanne. We're going to get to your question next. Oh yeah, this is Caroline again, and I want to ask what Henry thinks of all this, and is he clamoring for you to write something about him?
That's so
and I leave it up to you whether you will do it in his voice or not.
Of course. Well, I don't have a choice. When I do the dog voice, I don't do it as like any sort of choice. Like I do it because that's how they sound in my head. So I am merely broadcasting the dog to you people.
Mm-hmm.
I love that Caroline came back. She's like the characters on Weekend Update who keep like coming in on their chairs and they're like, I'm still here. It's like, that makes every day a better day when Caroline is around. So, hi, Bruce. Yes. I think Henry is very done with hearing about Woodrow in his very gentle Henry way. Like Henry is never going to like say boo to a goose, but he's going to think, I ain't kind of sick about hearing about that old dog because I don't know. I don't actually care about the old dog very much. He visits me sometimes, but don't really care. And if to write a book about him, Henry is actually very humble. I think when I was writing the Woodrow book, I could hear him being like, of course, what took you so long? You should have been writing about me my life. Which is true. And Woodrow, I should point out, had a Facebook page and still has a Facebook page on which he commented often on my stupid lifestyle choices and of all humans. But Henry, I think Henry's like, yeah, I don't care if you write a book about me or not. We could just go to the woods. I could run around like a wolf. Like he just really wants to run around like a wolf and eat poop and dead things, like and door stoppers.
What a life.
What a life. It's not
where we wish we could all live.
Right? You can all come with us. I will say that I have been thinking about writing a book about Henry called Pandemic Puppy that I pitched to my agent. Mm-hmm. Because I think so many of us got dogs during the pandemic, but also importantly to me, there were so many things that we managed to do to keep ourselves afloat, even during the pandemic and the election and the George Floyd murders and all these awful things. And there's always room in your life for joy, no matter how terrible things are. And that's what Getting a Puppy represents to me. And also dead things and poop. So I was going to write this book and I pitched it to my agent and she was like, Jenna, I think coming on the heel of Woodrow, that might be a bit how you say derivative. And I'm like, oh, do you mean I would be selling out? And she was like, yes, that is what I mean. And I'm like, I'm here for that. I'm here for that. So y'all let me know if you want a puppy book.
All right. I'm going to do 2 quick final questions because we are over time, but there's a couple that just came in from Joanne and Bozina, and then we'll wrap. So this is from Joanne. Thank you. I want to know about you. What is your favorite drink, your favorite appetizer, your favorite main dish, and your favorite dessert?
Oh my God, what a great question. I know I'm hungry for like the first time today.
So if anyone is taking Jenna out to dinner, this is like the moment for you. Listen very closely.
I think honestly it's seasonal. I should perhaps, put a Jenna menu on my website in case anybody wants to wine and dine me. I mean, right now, because it's fall, my favorite drink would be, there's actually a drink called the Woodrow, which is a bourbon cocktail. It is bourbon, maple syrup, a sugar salt rim, and stirred with candied bacon. Oh, and it also has a little Grand Marnier in it, and it is delicious. So it's kind of like
I like the sound of that,
but with more bacon. Also, I really like bacon, so a bacon appetizer is always good. I am more of a snacker than a main dish person. So I think like in the fall, my ideal meal, honestly, is like pretzels and cheddar cheese with my bourbon cocktail would be like delicious.
Very Midwestern. I feel.
I know. I'm like partly a Midwestern girl. It's true. And also I really like soup all the time. So if I were going to go out to a restaurant, I would look for like the bean stew or the bouillabaisse or the beef bourguignon, or depending on the restaurant, the clam chowder, which I am an expert in, and not Manhattan clam chowder because that is not a thing. That is tomato soup. And dessert, creme brulee.
Wow, beautiful. Love it. All right, last question. Here we go from Bozina. Sorry, my producer was trying to put that up there and I hit the wrong button. Thank you. Is there a chance for Henry to have a portrait of himself of any sort, written or painted, to take some pressure off?
This is a great guy. And I'm going to take you into my library, Bozina, to show you guys the Henry portrait that I received when Henry was a baby puppy, when I had just gotten him as a sort of a gift. Although now I can't see it and I don't know where it is, so maybe I'm not actually going to show you that. But my friend Jane Green painted a portrait of Henry that she gave me when he was a baby puppy. And it was just incredibly beautiful and looked exactly like him. And she painted it on an oyster shell because that's what she does. So if you go to Jane's Instagram and like click on her, what are those little, not LinkedIn things, the little things under the profile.
Mm-hmm.
And that says like shells, and she'll paint you a shell. Where the hell is
That is awesome.
Sorry, I'm like an old lady being like, "Where's my oyster shell with Henry's picture on it?" I don't know where it is, but okay, I'll show you my Woodrow portrait instead.
Wow.
Which I should point out was painted by a reader and sent to me after he died. So I have the best readers in the entire
You really do. I mean, people just show up and they send you these awesome. These are not like everyday things that you get sent from your readers. These are things that they make with their hands, and they're beautiful and they're thoughtful.
I treasure them. I really I treasure all of these things. I look at that Woodrow portrait every day. I think I moved Jane's shell because we had a party and I didn't want it to get broken, but I hold that in my hands every day. I hold this comfort bird every day and wish comfort upon its maker. So I am just incredibly blessed to have so many readers who are personally moved by what I write and then give me these tokens, and I really, really, I cherish them. I will have them when I'm an old lady.
Wow. Well, Jenna, I think that is a great place to wrap up this interview. This has been such a treat. But before we exhort everybody to go out and vote if they haven't already, and before we thank them for being such a wonderful community, I have to ask you, as always, my favorite question that I always ask authors. And I asked you last year, but I want to ask you again. Imagine that you have the perfect reader for this book, the reader that is reading this just the way that you wished it would be read, and receiving all that you have to give in just the way you would wish it to be received. This reader finishes reading Woodrow on the Bench. Tell us how this reader feels.
Less alone. I know it's the same answer I gave you last year, so sorry that I can't give you another answer, but it's probably good because that would have meant that my answer was a fake. I wrote Woodrow like I write all books to help people feel less alone. I think I can add to that, however, and say with the year's track record, I now have the privilege of knowing how people actually did react to the book, and they write and tell me how they reacted to the book. And I think that it helps a lot of people process the grief that they have about losing their animals. And also, obviously, as I talked about with my friend Bob, my new friend, it helps them with the loss of people too. And I think it helps them feel uplifted. So I would like you readers to feel both less alone and uplifted, and especially at this juncture in our world, a little more hopeful, because goodness and good people still exist in the world.
Well, I feel better than I did when we began this interview 15 minutes ago. I love the nourishing interview, and Jenna, you always deliver in that regard. So thank you. I'm not just saying thank you on my behalf. I mean, these comments are crazy. I mean, people were just saying, thank you, Jenna. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love this book. Awesome. So good to see you. I mean, there's a lot of love out there for you, Jenna Blum. And I think, your grand project of making people feel less alone and creating community through your books is a pretty big success.
Well, thank you, bro. I appreciate the interview. You always do nourishing interviews. Oh my God, Joanne, that just made my whole day. Thank you. You and Caroline popping on here, and all of my Blaze fam and all of my friends who are showing up. Hi, you guys. I see you. I see all of you. Thank you. It's so good to spend an afternoon with you.
Yes, it is. All right, folks, that is it for us today on The Thoughtful Bro. Jenna Blum, who, along with Caroline Levitt, who you saw earlier, is the co-founder of Mighty Blaze, and just also want to say a personal thanks for that. It's been wonderful for me to be a part of a Mighty Blaze, and none of this community would exist without the hard work and grit and sweat and tears of those two fine women. So Jenna, thank you for all you did for Mighty Blaze, all you do for people through writing your books, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, bro. I'll be back soon for Holiday Edition.
All right. See you next week, everybody. Thank you, Jenna.
Bye, everybody.